Okay, so in the previous lesson, we had started to look at the 3D view. So now what we're going to do is start to get into a little more detail as to how do you work with the 3D view. So what I want to first show you is that over here, if you bring this down, you can actually select objects by simply left clicking them here in the outliner. That's what the outliner does. It shows you all the objects inside the 3D view. So over here, if I click on the camera, you can see that it's selected over here. If I do cube or lamp. And again, it's the same thing as right clicking on the 3D view. So you can see that how it's changing over here. Now let's say that if I don't want to see the 3D cube, I can simply click on this eye. So now it's no longer showing in the 3D view. Basically, when you have a very complicated scene, you're going to find that you're going to be using this feature quite a bit. So I can click on this to bring it back. Now if I click on this little arrow over here, this means that I can no longer select the 3D cube. If I click on over here first, click on this camera, you can see that it's highlighted. If I click on the cube, you can see that regardless of the fact that it's highlighted, I can't really click on it. See, if I right click, nothing happens. If I right click on this, I can manipulate it. And one of the signals to you should be that if you right click this, you see we're not seeing the 3D manipulator, which is this over here, these green arrows. That's what the 3D manipulator is. So we can click on this. Now this last thing over here simply means that regardless of the fact that you're seeing this in the 3D view, this will actually not render in your final render. Okay, so over here, I want you to come over here and click on this tab and click on this button, render. See, it's not going to render. And if I click on this and click on render, it's going to render the 3D cube. Now notice what just happened. When I clicked on this, okay, it switched to a different window type. If you match the icon, it says UV or image editor. Now it just so happens that when you actually click this, you can press the escape key and it goes back to the way it was. Okay, but just remember that regardless of the fact that you click this, and if you press the escape key because you did something and it's not going back, just come over here and switch to 3D view. It's that simple. Okay, so now you know how these things work. Now, as I said, the shift key is pretty useful because if I press the shift key down and click on the first one and just drag my mouse, I can turn any of these options off very quickly. And if I press the shift key down again and click this over here, I can turn everything back on again very quickly over here. Okay, now if you click on this, you can see that what we get is the 3D manipulator here, which I already talked to you about over here. Now notice that we can actually hide the 3D manipulator if you don't want to see it. Okay, that's what this is. And you're going to get this 3D manipulator on all of these guys over here. Okay, now what we want to do is actually click on this. So far what you've seen is that you can do the middle mouse button to rotate, you can do the shift middle mouse button to pan, and you can do the scroll wheel over here. Now the question is, well, how do you look at this object from different angles? Meaning that, how do you look at this object from specific angles? So what I want you to do is just simply zoom in over here. Make sure that the cube is selected and you can see it over here. Now just press the period key on your numpad. Okay, so I'm going to press the period key. And what this is going to do is just home in on it. So if I do the scroll wheel to zoom out, do the middle mouse button, you can see that what it did, it put this object right smack in the middle. Now what I want you to notice is that what happens when I start to press a certain keys. Now in order for this to even work, well, I want to just make sure that it's going to work for you. Okay, now usually you want to use the numpad on your keyboard, but if you're on a laptop, let's say, you might not have this option. So what you want to do is first just go into File, User Preferences, and under the input, just make sure that you have Emulate Numpad selected for now. Okay, and it doesn't matter if you have a numpad or not. If you select that option, it'll become really easy to follow along. Now one of the things about this is that because I'm on a laptop and my left hand is on the keyboard, I want to be able to reach the top number keys very quickly. So now watch what happens when I press the 1 key. Now notice, when I press the 1 key, it's going to look at this object from the y-axis. And look how it's going to turn very quickly. Okay, see that? If I rotate like this, press the 1 key, I'm looking at it from the y-axis. And you can look over here, it says front. Okay, And if you rotate over here, you can see that how this the green is the y-axis and the y-axis pointing away from us. So this is what the front view is. Now I'm going to rotate again with the middle mouse button and press the 3 key. Notice that we're going to be looking at it from the right view, right? If I do 3, you can see that I'm looking at it from this angle on the red axis. If I want to do the top, I'm going to press the 7 key. See, now this is the top. So this is 1 is front, 3 is the right view, and 7 is the top view. Now you want to write these keys down on a piece of paper because we're going to be using these 3 keys quite a lot when we start creating the realistic version of the human figure. Now the other thing that I want to show you is that just rotate with the middle mouse button. Remember, when you have the cube selected, you can press the period key to just home in on it. So if I do shift middle mouse button and put the cube over here and I'm trying to rotate and try to find it, I can just press the period key to home in on it and just scroll over here. Okay, now notice that this over here says user perspective, meaning that this is in perspective mode. It gives you the illusion of the things in front are bigger and the things in the back are smaller. Now look what happens when I press the 5 key. It goes into ortho view. There is no perspective. Now we're going to be talking about this when we start to model the human figure. So there's no perspective. So I can still do the same thing. Now look what happens when I press the 1 key. I get access to a grid. Press the 3 key. Look what happens. It says right ortho. I'm in the right view. I get access to a grid. And press the 7 key over here to go to the top view. Now if you press the 1 key, you're in the front view. Now if you do control 1, it's going to go to the back view. Basically it's doing the opposite. If you press the 3 key, it says it's the right view. If you do control 3, it's the left view. If you press the 7 key, it's the top view. If you do control 7, it's the bottom view. Okay, now it just so happens that if you press the 1 key to go to the front view, you can also press the number 9, which just goes to the opposite view. So if I press the 3 key to go to the right view, if I press 9, it goes to the left view, right? It's a very quick way of changing. So if I do 7 to top and then do 9, it's the bottom. This is a quicker way than pressing 7, then reaching all the way on your keyboard, doing control 7, which is a little difficult, right, to go to the bottom. So this is something good to know about how to do that. Okay, so this is how you change your views. Now that's pretty much all I'm going to show you regarding this 3D view in object mode. So over here you can see that it says object mode. Okay, so what is 3D modeling all about, right? So you can see that when we click on the scale tool, the scale option over here, we can click on, let's say, this green. You can see that we can start to manipulate this object, right? And we can really do anything we want with this object, but we can't seem to change its shape. So the way you do this is that you have to go under edit mode. And when you go under edit mode, you have to first of all have the object selected. You can see that now I'm in edit mode. If I press the A key, it's going to deselect everything. If I press the A key again, it's going to select everything. I'm going to press the A key to deselect. I'm going to make sure that over here I'm selected on the translate, and that over here this is vertex select. You can see that these guys over here, if you right click, these are your vertices. If you click this green arrow with the left mouse button, you can start to manipulate this object. So this is what 3D modeling is all about, being able to create a simple to complex structure by manipulating these vertices over here. You can also click over here. This will be the edge. If I right click this, I can click on this edge. I can take it to the right, I can take it up, or I can even move it this way. Okay, remember you can press the 5 key to go back into perspective mode if you want to see what's going on, or you can do the 5 key to go into ortho. Okay, let's do the 5 key to stay in perspective, so it makes a little more sense. You can also click on this one to face select them. So if I now right click over here on an edge, you can see that I'm not going to be able to select the edge. I can only select the face. Now it's really these dots that you want to click on. See these black dots? You click on this. So over here you can see that I can now manipulate the face over here like this. Okay, and now the other thing that you can do is you can do Control Z, and now if I do Control Z, I'm just going to undo everything over here. I'll just do Control Z and it'll just put everything back to the way it was. Okay, Now, if you do Shift Control Z, you can start to redo all the actions that you did. Okay, so the Control Z and the Shift Control Z is something that you're going to be using quite a bit in this course. Okay, so I'm just going to do Control Z to put everything back. So this is how you can manipulate the object over here. Okay, so now over here you can see that we can also change the way this object is displayed in the 3D view. So over here, if you click on this, you're seeing that it says solid. You can also do wireframe. So now you can see how this object looks in wireframe. I'm doing the middle mouse button to rotate over here. So I can click on this vertex. Remember, I've switched over here to vertex. I can click on this to see how this vertex will change, and you can look at this from any angle that you want. And now when you're in edit mode, if I click on this vertex, I can press the period key. Remember, we pressed the period key when we were in object mode to focus in on the object. If you do it on a vertex, it'll do the same thing. But now if I do the middle mouse button, I'm rotating around the vertex. If I click on the edge, let's say I click on this edge, press the period key. Now if I do the middle mouse button, I'm rotating around the edge. If I do the face, let's say click on the face over here, press the period key. Now I'm doing the middle mouse button to rotate around over here. Okay, so now we're going to go under File and do Load Factory Settings. Okay, so now you understand how this concept works. Okay, now I'm just going to show you. I want you to click on this. Now I'm going to talk about all these things again when we start to model the human figure. What I want you to do is over here, I want you to collapse this over here, and then collapse this over here, collapse this, and click on this over here. It says display. It says toggle quad view. We're going to talk about this later. But if you click it, you can see that you can see the object in 4 different views. It's the same thing. I have the top view over here, I have the front view, and here I have the right view. Now I want you to zoom in over here. Remember, you can press the period key. You have to have your mouse home down and scroll out. Now just rotate. Click on the red arrow. Now look what's happening. It's actually how it moves over here on the x-axis, so you can see that how it looks from the front, how it looks from the top. See this? If I do the green arrow, it's going to move over here from the right. If I do this over here, it's just going to move on the z-axis, it's going up. So this is a better way of understanding how 3D object creation is done, how 3D manipulation is done. You're basically moving vertices and edges and faces in a 3D environment. Okay, so now if you switch to edit mode over here, let's do the same thing. Okay, remember this is over here. I'm just going to zoom in. Click on the face select mode. Let's right click on this face, and over here I'm just going to move it over here. Click on the green arrow. Now if I move this, you can see that how this is being represented in all these views over here. Okay, so now to get back to where we were, we can just click on toggle quad view. It'll go back to the way it was over here. Now I'm just going to switch to object mode over here. Now as I said, we're going to talk about this stuff in more detail, but if you left click, you can see that we have this 3D cursor over here. So if you click on, let's say move this 3D cursor, right? If you rotate with the middle mouse button, you can see that it's really just being placed over here dependent on your view where you're looking at it, right? So let's say if we click over here somewhere, it doesn't matter where you're clicking it. Now go under create. Now over here, let's say we click on cube. See, it's going to put that cube wherever the 3D cursor is. So let's say I'm going to click over here, and let's say I want a cylinder. It's going to add a cylinder over here. Click this, add a torus, and over here you can also add a monkey over here. And here I can click on these manipulators to move these these individual objects around. Just right click over here to move the stuff around, and just do the middle mouse button to rotate around it. Okay, click on this, go up over here like this. Okay, so you can move things around in this way. And if when you have any of these objects selected, let's say we click on this monkey, press the period key. Now when you switch to edit mode, you can start manipulating these concepts. So again, same thing, click on this face, move it up over here, move it any way that you want to. Now I just want to show you that you can also move these things around without clicking on these manipulators. So what I want you to do is go into File, do Load Factory Settings once again, so we can just clear that out. So over here, if I do the middle mouse button to rotate, and make sure that I right click this, and over here make sure that the cube is selected. Now you can also press the G key. If you press the G key, it will attach to your mouse, and you're basically moving this around on all axes. Now if you press the Z key, it now can only move on the Z axis. If you press the X, it's on the X axis, and if you press the Y, it's on the Y axis. And if you right click, you can cancel anything. So if I actually just right click on this cube, right click and move the mouse, it's going into automatic G mode. And look what happens, it's stuck on my mouse. If I let the right mouse button go, it's still stuck. But if I right click, it's going to cancel this. Okay, so if I right click this again, move it. If I left click this, it's going to confirm that as a movement. So if I do Control Z, it'll put it back. So this is an important concept. We're going to be using this quite a bit. So if I right click something and do this, it's basically going to cancel that movement. Okay, now you can also do the rotation. So over here we saw that when we click on this, we can rotate this object. We can also press the R key. Now you can see that I can rotate. If I press the X, it's going to rotate on the X, on the Z axis, Y, and Y. If I right click, it'll just cancel. If I'll just do Control Z to put it back. See, if I do R, I can rotate. If I do cancel, it'll cancel it. Now if you press the R key 2 times, 1, 2, you can see that you can actually rotate on any angle that you want. Okay, and then left click to confirm, or do Control Z. And if you do the R key 2 times, rotate, and if you cancel, it'll just put it back the way it was. Right, now you can do the same thing with the scale. So if I click on this, this is how we were doing with the scale. Remember, you don't even have to have these selected. So if I click on this, if I want to scale this, I can press the S key. Now it's going to scale this over here. If I press the Z key, it's going to scale on the Z axis, X on the X axis, and then Y on the Y axis. Okay, now you can do the same thing in edit mode. If I go in edit mode, and let's say if I click on the face, I can press the S key and scale it. Or if I'm even in the scale mode, if I press the G key, I can start to move it, and I can press the R key to rotate it, and right click to cancel this. Now let's see what happens when you click on the edge. If you click on this edge, I can press the S key to scale, I can press the G key to move, and if I press the R key, I can rotate. Now obviously if you click on a vertex, you can't do that because vertex is just a point. So if you do the G key, you can move it, but if you do R, it's not going to do anything. And if you press S, it's not going to scale anything. Okay, so that's what how all these concepts are going to be working. Okay, so now you're getting a general understanding of how you can start to manipulate these objects. Okay, so we're going to talk, obviously when we start to model the human figure, we're going to be using a lot of Blender features that will allow you to make that complex object. So if I do file, and I'm just going to load this over here, you can see that this entire figure over here, it's done with that same concept. See, all of these things are exactly the same. These are your faces, these are your edges, and these are your vertices, right? It's all about, if I press the G key, moving these things around over here. See how this moves around? This is how we manipulate these vertices to create complex objects over here. Okay, so I'm just going to do tab, click this over here. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lesson where we will start the process of building this realistic version of the human figure using the formula-based system. Thank you.